started. So first of all, welcome everybody, and thank you for taking your time to join us today. I'm Hilton Southey, Managing Director of LeanIX based here in Boston. And we have a fantastic guest today in the form of Larry Kaufman, who's going to be sharing some real insights as to how he's used LeanIX and how he's managed enterprise architecture in a number of adventures over the years. So before I hand over to Larry, who's very much definitely best to introduce himself, just a couple of things I'd like to point out. We're very much trying to maintain our organization as a customer-centric business. We try not to invest as much time as maybe other companies do in selling. We're much more comfortable allowing customers to do the talking. Some of you may have been part or have attended our EA Connect days earlier this year. The US event itself was attended by close to 2,000 people. On the screen, you'll see a few of the star performers we had. Gregor Hope, who's an enterprise strategist, wrote a fantastic book called The Architect Elevator. We had some guests from Lego Group and from McKinsey, who shared some fantastic insights into how to use data and connect data and information to help drive your business. We also had Vanessa Fernandez from Itaú, which is in fact one of the world's largest banks, the largest bank in the Southern Hemisphere, with a headquarters in Brazil, but a global footprint. For those of you who missed the event and want to learn more, following on from what Larry talks about today, or just want to learn more about enterprise architecture and LeanIX generally, please feel free to go to our website. The links that are shared on the slide, I'll drop into the chat so that anybody who wants to go and find out more about our customers and how they've used our tools can do that. Just wanted to share some of those opportunities to learn. In addition, coming up in September is our next Connect Days, which is actually going to be hosted in Bonn. I'll also share the booking sheet so you can actually go straight onto our website if you find what Larry talks about today interesting, or whether you just like to learn more about our customers. I'd like to invite you to join us for that event, which will be an on-site event, but also hybrid, so that people around the globe can tune in and take a look. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Larry, who's going to be driving today. And as I said, probably best for Larry to introduce himself.
Thank you, Hilton.
Stop sharing. You should be good to share now.
Should be coming up.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Hilton. I appreciate that. And thanks to everyone on the webinar today. I am really excited to talk today about alignment between IT and the business, and specifically how LeanIX, for me and my companies, became the enabler for collaboration and cost savings, quite frankly. So first, let me just start off a little bit about myself. I'm actually an engineer by education. Started my career at Ford Motor Company in various roles. I moved on to a technical consultancy called Ricardo, based out of England, and there is where I really started my transition over into the IT realm. I was responsible for a global SAP ERP implementation, did that for a number of years, and eventually moved on to Magna, specifically Magna Powertrain, an $11 billion global tier 1 auto supplier, initially as a new head of the program management office and PLM lead, eventually working my way up to the head of IT and InfoSec, basically the CIO of the company. After a number of years at Magna, I most recently went to Delphi Technologies in an engineering IT role to come in and look at rationalizing the IT, specifically within the engineering area. And for those who may not be following the automotive sector too closely, Delphi Technologies was acquired by Borg Warner, and a lot of the executives at Delphi were separated. Hence, myself starting my own consulting company, and why I came and started collaborating more with LeanIX, as you'll see in the upcoming slides why that is. So what is alignment? You know, by definition, it's an arrangement or groups or forces in relation to one another. And you see that everyone is talking about, you know, how to get IT and the business aligned together. You can see all these different articles, 4 steps to alignment, 7 steps to alignment. Personally, I like 4 better. But what does it truly mean? And really, the question to ask is, how can enterprises actually achieve this goal? And so enter enterprise architecture. And at the heart, at the core of what EA is, in the first step to bringing alignment, is really based on an understanding of the capabilities of the business. And so what you start at the heart of what enterprise architects do is to better understand the business in more of a hierarchical model that, you know, you can break down to bite-sized chunks of capabilities within an organization. So instead of saying, you know, for example, we design and build cars or parts, we can now start saying, you know, what the business actually does in a lot more detail. So the question is, how do you get there? And, you know, nowadays, how do you get anywhere? You use maps. Enter LeanIX, right? LeanIX has been called Google Maps for IT. And it's just, it is that easy. So here's LeanIX, the business and the solution in a nutshell. You know, over 500 customers and growing. They're a challenger in Gartner's Magic Quadrant. They have SOC 2 Type 2 certification, and obviously are very well funded. As far as the functionality within the tool, you can see here everything from SaaS intelligence to application portfolio management, technical risk and transformation, to now looking at more cloud intelligence and microservices intelligence. And as you can see here, everything in the dotted line areas, you can see they've got a pretty healthy roadmap for continuous improvement and continuing more and more functionality within the tool itself. Today, we're going to really focus on the application portfolio management aspect of the tool, which includes, you know, the application rationalization, standards management, business capability modeling. Here are some use cases you can see that are enabled by LeanIX. And again, we're going to talk mainly about the application portfolio management, the app rationalization, roadmaps, and target architecture. So let's dive in. So a little bit about Magna, where I was. Overall, $41 billion in revenue globally. They're the #1 auto supplier in North America, #3 globally. We've got about almost 170,000 employees around the globe, 350 locations, and 30,000 applications. But what's interesting about Magna is it's made up of an umbrella of, within that, 7 different completely decentralized companies. And so when you have that large of an organization that is completely decentralized, you can imagine some of the frustration, especially in the IT world, of how do you gain that alignment and standardization across, you know, the entire enterprise. So in terms of our goals and challenges that we faced, you know, our goal was, at that time, we wanted to bring the IT organization up to a strategic partner level. We were really kind of an order taker when we began this journey, and we really wanted to raise that game in alignment and collaboration with the business. So, you know, we had to ask ourselves 3 important questions. What should we focus on? What brings the most value to the business? And, you know, where do we start? So we took a crawl, walk, run approach by developing common business capability model across the group. And what we really wanted to get was a common repository of those business capabilities, the application data, so we could do that heat mapping and reporting, on against that business capability model. What we didn't want was a full-blown CMDB, a security risk tool, or, for that matter, a full-blown ERP system. And so here's what we wound up with. You can see on the screen that we developed our business capability model. This is actually a screenshot of coming out of LeanIX. And, after some weeks of collaborating with the right subject matter experts in each area, we came up with our Magna business capability model, as you can see here. Now, it's only level 1 and 2, but it did go down to more deeper, more detailed levels within the tool itself. And where we were when I left Magna in 2019 is that we could finally identify where the individual product groups, as I said, those individual businesses had common capability and criticality within each of the business capabilities. We had a map for our functional transformation initiatives and what type of solution. We were able to see that understanding of the capabilities that were deemed critical across the enterprise. And eventually down the road, we started getting into the data flow visualizations. And so we could now start to see the critical data is flowing from application to application. So if any one of those applications went down, we would see the dependencies and links to the other applications. Again, this is all straight from within the LeanIX tool. In terms of outcomes, when we talked about alignment, we achieved a much deeper understanding of the business and rationalization that resulted in savings or cost avoidance, as you can see here on the slide, multi-million dollars. We found redundancies across the group that we could now standardize and get alignment. In terms of insight, we finally had that one version of the truth. We had at-a-glance visibility of the critical capabilities that I said and the technical debt. And that led to really improved transparency between the groups and Magna International, the big umbrella that oversaw everything. We could, again, easily see and compare critical capabilities and outdated tech. And for the functional departments, for the business themselves, they finally actually had the realization of their technical landscape that they'd never had before. And finally, we had input to our control audits, our risk assessments, and cybersecurity in general. The other thing it enabled was prioritization. So we could finally build up, rolled up roadmaps across all of the different Magna businesses. And we could now start to plan avoiding conflicts of resources for global implementations, and avoid any of those resource bottlenecks and conflicts. We used LeanIX as part of our demand management process. And that saved, a bunch of Excel forms of, what is this group doing and when, and trying to collaborate and trying to get that all synced up together. It was now all in one tool where we could all see each other's roadmaps and roll that up so we didn't have too much change across the entire enterprise at one time. So really, it provided that long-term IT strategy and road mapping capability that, in large companies like that, it's so elusive. And we could start now to visualize and plan both, as I said, the IT and the business support teams for implementations. So now let's shift gears for a second and look at what I did at Delphi Technology. So Delphi, again, is another automotive tier 1 supplier. 4.5 billion revenue, 20,000 employees, 5,000 just in engineering alone. As you may know, GM, it was a spinoff from GM back in 1999. It changed names to Aptiv, and then again, it spun off in 2017. And what they were left with was, specifically in engineering, over 550 different engineering applications. And it was just so complex and overwhelming. They flat out just did not know how to tackle that level of complexity. And I was brought in to help simplify. Again, Delphi was also made up of 4 different product groups. I will say not as decentralized as Magna was, but again, somewhat decentralized. Some of the product groups had their own, tech, their own applications, their own services that they utilized. So in terms of our goal, I was brought in to clean up years of engineering systems and processes and reduce complexity, over the long haul of nearly over 20 years of coming out of GM and spinoff from a spinoff. And no one really took the time to really address it internally in terms of a complexity reduction initiative. And so we asked ourselves the same questions that we did in Magna. What should we focus on? What brings the most value? And where do we start first? And here's a snapshot of the typical uses of the engineering tools. You can see globally around 43 locations, all the different thousands of users within different tools in the company. And Delphi actually brought in, before my arrival, an external consulting company, one of the big 4, to come in and do an estimate of their engineering application costs. And the original estimate was $51 million of running costs per year. It was, when I came in and really got down to a deeper level of diving into the details, it was grossly overstated. And you can see there some examples of how grossly overestimated it was. We had a bill of material tool that, according to the consulting company's estimate, was costing us $271,000 a year, when in fact it was an Excel file that was, had no support, no license fees, nothing, and it didn't cost us anything. And then the reverse, we had a CAE tool called ANSYS. It was again estimated because they used this peanut butter spread, analysis that actually, they said it was costing us $271,000, when in actuality it was costing us over $3 million a year. So you can see they really didn't take the time to really dive into the details. They were brought in to, again, help with the rationalization and, come up with a business capability model to help with that. And what I'm going to show you here is their overall timeline for developing that business capability model. And what you can see there is their timeline estimate was 4 months to develop that BCM, just to get the BCM, not to do actually any analysis, was just to get the BCM validated. So I can tell you 4 months was unacceptable to my CEO. And so, I went into my CEO, I asked him if I could get rid of the consulting company and bring in LeanIX. But before I did that, I can show you, here's where we were with that consulting company. Obviously, they were using Excel for everything. We were literally living an Excel nightmare. And it was just spreadsheet after spreadsheet. And what's interesting to note here, that within this spreadsheet, as you can see, we started documenting all of our applications, but there was no real analytical data in here. It was literally just the name of the application only. And so it really wasn't helping us. And so, I went in there, I got rid of the consulting company. we brought LeanIX in, and within 4 to 6 weeks, we had our business capability model complete and in the system. With our engineering, we were starting to develop the other groups, but we focused, again, my focus was on engineering. We had the BCM completed in the tool. And as you can see, we had life cycle information, we had the BCM by individual locations, all within the tool. Here's another view of the tool straight out of the application, where you can see all of the different applications mapped against different engineering categories. So now we could see which categories were within and supporting which capabilities. We can look at it by locations and subgroups. And we could get into the life cycle. So you can see here a closer snapshot, the life cycle, and that was the roadmap that we started using for the rationalization. And what came out of that was a much better understanding of our costs. And within that, ironically enough, we figured out that 42 apps out of the 550 plus really accounted for 90% of our engineering year over year costs. And so now what that allowed us to do was, create a focus areas to start concentrating where we have redundancies and overlap. So that allowed us to create an engineering license reduction plan. As you can see here, we started in more detail of where we had overlaps, where we had too many licenses, and where we could reduce. And you can see the results of that. And now let's talk about some of the outcomes. So first, when it comes to the organization, the action we took was we assembled a cross-functional, cross-discipline, cross-business unit group of engineering experts. We got them all trained within LeanIX and literally crowdsourced the data into LeanIX. So the great thing about LeanIX is it's not a per user model. So you can have, unlimited amount of people entering data in the system. And what that results in is we had LeanIX up and running within 2 weeks. We had our BCM aligned, loaded, and configured in another 2 weeks. And we had data in terms of the locations, the applications, the categories within another 2 weeks. Pretty quick turnaround, I would say, versus 4 months waiting for just to get a BCM aligned with a consulting company. In terms of the insight, again, similar to Magna, we had one version of the truth. Finally, we had our financial data in the system. We had all of our functional and technical data in the system. And as a result, similar to Magna, we had improved transparency. We had visibility across the landscape from our functional department. They finally realized exactly what they had, what redundancies they had in their own text landscape. And we could easily, again, see and compare critical capabilities and legacy outdated technology. And in terms of rationalization, we used LeanIX again to analyze those overlaps and then prioritize the decommissioning. And so from November to June, 8 months, we really reduced the engineering application landscape from 556 down to 459. And we had another 59 apps scheduled to be decommissioned by the end of the year. And without even trying, it was, more or less low-hanging fruit. We saved nearly $1 million of year-over-year application costs. And when you're talking about a total engineering cost of 15 million, it was a significant bite at the apple. And that was just the quick wins. Unfortunately, I never had the chance to realize the full capability of the system because of the takeover by BorgWarner. But I must say, most importantly, I had engineers that, going back to GM days, came up to me and called me out of the blue and say, Larry, we have not had this level of visibility going back to our General Motors days. And, for me, that was a humongous win. And I think everybody really realized how complex their landscape was, and that it didn't need to be that way. And it was really the path to start the enabler for simplification and rationalization. So to wrap up, why LeanIX? Again, it comes down to this best-in-class usability. I mean, to have a group that we had over 70 subject matter experts within engineering up and trained to use LeanIX within 2 weeks, it's pretty remarkable, because it doesn't take all that much training. It's so user-friendly and it's so just natively easy to use. It's just easy. So given that, you have extremely fast return on your investment, because you can start getting all that information into the tool and start gleaning and analyzing very quickly. And it is, again, that true enabler of business and IT collaboration. And it's important to note that LeanIX is actually an open architecture that has many APIs to the most common applications and growing. So, if you're a ServiceNow organization, it's got a native API to link into your ServiceNow instance. And you can see some of the other big ones that they link into. For us at Delphi, Jira was a major one. We developed a lot of software, so we use Jira extensively. I never got to realize it, but we were planning on using that integration to Jira. And you can see the other applications. And again, there's more to come. And finally, every CIO gets asked the question when they're, requesting money to go purchase a SaaS solution, from their CFO in particular, what is the realization and the ROI? And really, you can achieve as low as 4 weeks to start leveraging the information coming out of LeanIX for real actionable results. And that's the whole point here. And so I'm going to end with LeanIX in two companies that I've been with has really been probably one of the most important applications that we ever implemented within IT. And it was probably, not even probably, it was the heaviest used application within the IT group and in the business and that collaboration platform. So I'm going to end there and open it up to any questions.
Thank you so much, Larry, and thank you, folks, for listening in. If you do have questions, and there's already a significant number of questions that have been dropped into the chat and the Q&A, I'm going to take questions from both, so feel free to keep adding those questions. And Larry, so I'll just go through the questions, and time permitting, let's see how many we can get to. And
yeah, fire away.
If we don't get to your answers, we'll find a way to contact you and give you the information that you need. So maybe let's start at the beginning, Larry. So one of the questions which has come up for more than one person is around getting started. So the specific question is, how difficult is it to get data into the application? And once you've got it in the application, how hard is it to maintain that information?
Yeah, great question. So, a lot of companies start down the path, right, of doing business capability models, and naturally, and we were the same. We started down using Excel, trying to create massive lists, that were hierarchical within Excel. The great thing about LeanIX is it's got such an easy import function that you don't have to start from scratch. You can, if you've already started down the path, you can use those Excel files that everyone seems to naturally create in the beginning to try and attempt this initiative, import those, you massage them a little bit, but the import process takes minutes. It's not like days, it's not weeks, it's literally minutes to import. And once it's in the system, like I said, it's so user-friendly and so intuitive how the screen works, how the screens work together. It is super easy. It is, I hate to use this, but I'll say Apple friendly. That's how easy it is to use. And one of the other questions, I just might as well bring it up now, is people get worried that, oh my God, if you're all pinging the system at the same time with different sets of data, how do you make sure that that data is correct and quality controlled? And one of the things we did was we set up team leaders in each of our functional disciplines to spot check the data that was going into their business capabilities that they oversaw and the application data that was being input as well. But the great thing is, and we did that for, let's say, 2 to 3 months as we got the data into the system more and more. And after that 2 to 3 month period, there's actually functionality within the system to actually systematically control the data input. So you have what's called worksheet owners that they quality control the data before it gets released into the system. And so you maintain that quality control that way going forward.
Good, interesting. And just maybe taking a small step back, Larry, but staying on that similar pathway to how you get started. Once you have your data uploaded and you've got your process in play to maintain hygiene, where do you go from there? Like, what was your next logical step to get things off the ground?
Yeah, so it's as easy as getting your capabilities and your applications. That's it for now, right? The first step is just mapping those two elements together. And right there, because of the native out-of-the-box reporting that comes out of LeanIX, you can start to see, literally, as I said in the presentation, at a glance, where you have application redundancies. Forget about technical fit, forget about functional fit for now. Now you can start to see, well, wait a minute, we've got 6 applications all fulfilling the same capability. Why is that? Well, the reason is because there are certain groups in different parts of the world that have gone out and investigated and implemented their own solution. So now once you have that visibility of the landscape, that's all you need, is literally those two elements, the business capabilities and the applications themselves, to start leveraging and getting return on that investment out of the tool. And then as you start getting more and more data around functional fit, around technical fit, and you start talking about, well, okay, now we've got a plan, we're going to reduce this, we're going to get rid of this, or we're going to get rid of some of these licenses. Now you can start building that life cycle information. So now you've got not only redundancy, you've got a life cycle, you've got a roadmap. Then eventually, as you become more mature, you start putting in some of the financial data. Now you can start seeing cost comparisons within each capabilities. And eventually, ultimately, you can get down to the data. As I showed there, we started at Magna getting down into the data. We did the same at Delphi, where you can start leveraging data flows to see what's moving where. As you rationalize things, it's a security discussion at that point. If X system goes down, what is it going to mean in terms of our data flow and other systems that are going to be affected by those systems going down? You can map that very easily. So there's definitely a pathway to build more and more leverage out of the tool. You don't have to get it all at once. You can start small just by looking at that standardization of the applications against business capabilities.
Great. Thanks for walking us through that, Larry. When you embarked on that project, did those organizations have software inventories already in place? And if so, what was the value of those? You may have touched on that, or were we talking about something different there?
Yeah, no. So some people had inventories that were in Excel. Again, you can leverage that. Again, everything is uploadable into the system. Some of the groups did, some of them didn't. And so the groups that didn't, yes, it became, as I said, a crowdsourced exercise. Those who knew what applications, and obviously they know which applications they use because they use them on a daily basis. They start inputting their data into the system. And now you can actually see on the dashboard of the percent complete of within each business capability, how the data is getting input into the system, as you can watch it grow on the dashboard as more and more information becomes available. So yeah, it was kind of a mixed bag, Hilton. Some people did, some people didn't.
Right. There's a lot of questions, as one would expect, around the early stages and setup. And maybe I'll come back to a few more of those around initial upload of data. But maybe just to go in a different direction, just to balance some of the questions. Can you give us some more detail and elaborate on specific use cases for governance, risk, and compliance with LeanIX?
Yeah. So when it comes to GRC, a lot of the checklists that you have, all of the different aspects of making sure you're tying these off, your updates and things like that, you can now leverage LeanIX because that becomes your app landscape. And so when questions arise, well, what version are you at? How many licenses do you have? How critical the application is to the organization? All of that information is literally at a glance in the dashboards within LeanIX. So when you start getting into audits, you can go right to your LeanIX dashboard. And if someone's asking about a critical application, you literally within 10 seconds, you can get to it in LeanIX and find, who has it, who's using it, what the vendor is, how much it costs, all of that stuff in the system very easily.
Good. And I've got a question about App Tier, but I'll come back to that. Again, just to spread a little bit further out on the questions. Looking at what you've described, one of the things that arises is, can you talk a bit about the other groups within the organization that are not involved in EA that actually have access and use the tool as you set it up and on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, so it was remarkable because, you always think about these types of tools as IT tools. And one aspect that we found was in both Magna and Delphi was that the business so appreciated the visibility into their own application landscape. And they used the tool to see and rationalize and reduce their process complexity, which, by the way, it's not just for applications. You can start loading in processes into LeanIX as well. And so they so appreciated the ability to go in and see, well, the engineering team, for example, is global. We had, thousands of engineers in Europe, thousands of engineers in Asia, thousands of in North America. And now you can see, like, what sense does it make to have multiple applications fulfilling the same capabilities on a global scale? Sometimes there is a reason, right? Sometimes there is a legal or a regulatory reason that requires a certain application, but at least you can see that, and you can see by looking at and evaluating the functional fit whether that makes sense or not. So that's from a business standpoint. They were so, and again, they're used to IT tools being, out of their realm of understanding, like, too in the weeds of IT speak. And LeanIX is so not like that. It is so very intuitive and user-friendly that the business really appreciated the access to it. It wasn't just used as an IT tool.
Great. So as you're aware yourself, there are many different approaches in methodology and many different tools out there. can you maybe talk a little bit about the other alternatives, and if possible, what made you choose LeanIX over the other tools that are available?
Yeah. So there's definitely other tools, and at Magna, we definitely went through a full evaluation of several different tools. And I would say, again, coming back to it, the biggest difference between LeanIX and those tools was the usability and just the model, the operating model, and the contractual model that you use, that it's not a per user basis. Because obviously, as a company, if their goal is to get collaboration between IT and the business, which is why we're here today, you want as many people using the tool as possible. And with a per user model, that becomes sometimes prohibitive, and especially in very large companies. That's not the way LeanIX works. And so that we took advantage of that operating model and that contractual model to get as many people trained and up and running in the tool as possible. So that was really, and just, the look and feel, the dashboarding, the ease of which you could get information in and out. It really, it put LeanIX on another really plateau for us. And it was an easy choice, to be honest.
Interesting. Thank you, Larry. So another question here, again, changing direction a little bit. Many of our prospective customers and many EA professionals out there prefer to start with business architecture, where strategy and objectives are the priority, primarily driven by the TOGAF framework, which sort of dictates that that's where you begin. And as a result, they like to start there. Some customers prefer to start with application portfolio management and then focus on the IT architecture use cases. What's your take on those two different and, I believe, valid approaches, and which one do you see as providing a quick win? Which one provides long-term sustainability? A few thoughts to kick around there, but love to hear how you see that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely kicked around the idea of going down TOGAF and looking at that route. And we all came to the conclusion, at least the 7 IT leaders in Magna, when we were evaluating, we all quickly came to the conclusion, if we went down the TOGAF route, we would not get the collaboration with the business that we really so desired. And so we voted against it. And we said, we believe we could achieve the same goal with rationalization and standardization by going down the LeanIX route, developing a global BCM, business capability model, and starting to map the applications that way very easily. Again, we wanted to be pragmatic about it. Going down the TOGAF route, it would have taken us, we felt, into the weeds too much, too deeply, and we would have never gained, the insight and the real results that we were looking for quickly. We thought we were just going to end up in analysis paralysis down TOGAF, so we opted out of it.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. So just in terms of the practicalities of, you spoke a bit about collaboration and that the commercial model allows for people to interact with the tool no matter what side of the business they're in, and a per user model would limit that. But with that collaboration principle in mind, how did you physically work out with the business to determine and document the business capabilities? Are we talking about, did you create collaboration sessions with the business? And you mentioned something around crowdsourcing. Maybe you can drill a little bit deeply into what you mean by that. And maybe you can talk a bit about how that process worked and explain from there.
Yep. So definitely, we identified key users, and we leveraged those key users as subject matter experts within their field. And so we started with the basics in terms of HR and IT, finance, some of the things that it didn't matter what unique aspect of the particular business group, what product they were making or whatever. There were certain cross Magna, for example, capabilities that everyone had to had to fulfill. Then when we got into the individual, we took everyone's bead on, well, okay, within engineering, for us in, this particular group, this is really a critical point, or within this group, this is really a critical point. We could actually now use the tool to map them all in, and you can toggle different groups and see at a glance, again, what's critical to them. And that's when I think one of the slides I showed was we could start to identify where we had cross-group unanimity within the capabilities, right? Some of them reached everybody and everyone equally. Others had more importance to some groups. Others had more important to others. So you're right. We collaborated. We set up individual sessions. We started to build out the model. And, after a few weeks, because the capability of the system is so collaborative in nature, we could start seeing that model develop until we said, okay, we're at a point where we don't want to go any deeper in terms of the hierarchical levels down below. We were, again, taking that crawl, walk, run approach, where we said, okay, we want to get down to levels 3 or 4, stop there, start to get the applications mapped in, and start where we go from there. You can take the BCM down to, as many levels as you want, but I would recommend, if you're starting down this journey, start small, start simple, and build. Start getting some data, start leveraging the tool, and you can build on it from there. So, but yeah, highly collaborative with the business to develop that BCM initially. And there's, LeanIX helped us create that initial one, and we enhanced it from there. So, if people are out there and they're looking at, well, where do we start? We don't even know how to even begin with a BCM. I will say LeanIX is definitely helpful in that area. And there's other, there's other consultants that could actually come in and help you develop that. But again, I wouldn't take 4 months to do that. I would start small, get it directionally correct, and get it into the system. The faster you get it into the system, the faster you'll start realizing that the system can give you that data and start leveraging analysis very quickly.
Thank you, Larry. Maybe a good segue into the next question. You touched on consultancy. The question is, did you take advantage of professional services to get up and running?
Within LeanIX?
Yes.
So we did initially at Magna. I didn't at Delphi because, quite frankly, I was a LeanIX veteran at that point. I kind of acted as my own professional services. But in Magna, yes, when we first got into it and we were first introduced to it, yes, absolutely. It was a big help.
It was a big help. So that sounds like the advice may be there that once you're fully experienced with the tool, you probably won't need that degree of support, maybe not in the beginning. Perhaps if you're looking to elevate your enterprise architecture practice, you may add that crew in at a later stage. But generally speaking, it sounds like a lot of the heavy lifting can be done without having to invest in a large PS project.
Yes, no, definitely not. I would say, if you have people who have some level of experience developing business capability models, that's really all you need. Because like I said, I keep saying this over and over again. I can't emphasize it enough. The tool is so simple to use. If you have that background, the BCM development is so simple and easy to input. It's just getting that model that's right. And every company is, there's definitely standard models out there, but every company is going to want to tweak it a little bit to meet what their capabilities are and what's important to them. And so, it's every company might be different. There's going to be a lot that's similar. Like I said, the finance, the IT, those kind of generic departments that every organization uses will be pretty standardized. It's when you get into, unique products and services at the enterprise level, where it starts to, you want to get some, let's say, customization in your BCM for those areas in the business.
Right. So I think maybe you've answered another question which came up, but let's make sure we cover it. So is it recommended to align business capability definitions before starting BCM so that everybody is aligned?
Yes, that definitely helps. I will say, yeah, absolutely. And again, if you've got those already somewhat established in an Excel file, those can all get populated, input, during the importing function. But yes, it's definitely helpful to understand what each capability means. And it might be different for every business, but yes, I think that is helpful.
Great. Maybe just switching gear a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about integrations that you leveraged? The ServiceNow piece comes up and Aptio comes up too. I don't know if those were relevant to what you guys did.
Yeah. So we were not in Magna. We were not a ServiceNow organization. In Delphi, we were. Unfortunately, in Delphi, I left too soon to realize that integration, but it was on our roadmap. I can tell you, I did integrate LeanIX with Microsoft Power BI, got some additional customized financial reporting that my CFO wanted to see out of the tool. And I understand now or soon that is going to be a native API integration coming soon there. So yeah, unfortunately I didn't end up using a lot of the integrations, but I knew they were there and they were on our roadmap to use.
Great, thank you. We've pretty much covered everything, and we're just running out of time here too. I'm just going to look through and see if there's anything that we haven't touched on in any way. Yes, I think we've covered everything then, Larry, unless there are new questions that folks want to drop into the Q&A. I think we're pretty much ready to say thank you very much and wrap up. So maybe, Larry, a special thank you from the LeanIX side, and we really appreciate you sharing with us today.
Thank you, guys, and thanks to everyone on the call today.